Our democracy. Congress is supposed to be a deliberative legislative body that considers potential policies, regulations, spending packages, and then votes on them. What a world. When it all gets rolled into one, you lose the ability to have a debate about the merits of any individual provision of the bill. For instance, conservatives are currently debating a policy proposed by Republican Senator Mike Lee of Utah to sell off federal land for development. Now, some on the right support this because it would allow for more housing to be built, while others oppose it. But the point is this: when it was in the big, beautiful bill, almost nobody even knew about it. Now, the Senate parliamentarian has actually stripped it from the big, beautiful bill, stripped some other stuff as well, for reasons we don't need to get into right now. So it's actually getting some attention, the selling of land, discussion, and also debate on social media at least. But it's not being debated by Congress. I can tell you that. The everything bagel mode of governance has unfortunately paralyzed our democracy and the efficiency of our government. It also leads to endless growth of government, a real failure to constrain the deficit. I've said it a lot this week, so I'll say it one more time. It would be great for MAGA, great for America first, great for the entire country if members of Congress took their jobs a little bit more seriously, at least as seriously as Thomas Massie and Theo Vaughn.
Interesting one, Robbie. I know that you're a big fan of the congressman, who is, I think, in the House at least, the closest aligned to your libertarian principles. I take in the abstract the point that it would be better to have any provision that is to be voted on by the Congress sort of separated out. I think that would avoid the kind of concept that he's talking about, where you have to vote for a thing you don't like, otherwise you'll get negative ads about some other thing that everyone would agree to that you've then voted against. My question about it really is one more of practicality, because it seems to me that the problem right now is not that Congress is like passing too many laws or it's working at such breakneck speed. It's exactly the opposite, that Congress is seizing up quite a lot of the time. And if you then, even with good intentions, just vastly multiply the number of bills, I just imagine that sort of sclerotic slowness will get even worse.
Well, maybe, but they're voting on things that they don't even know what's in the bills. The bills are these, omnibus bills that are so long, so many pages, that get passed at the last moment when the whole government's about to shut down. They don't even know what they're voting for. I mean, it's just an insane way to do government at all. I mean, that no other country is like this. At the last minute, has to cram through some piece of legislation they don't even understand. Yeah. It's just it's so sad how broken it is. This whole land issue, which is heating up on the right. I don't know how familiar you are with it. I've become more aware of it in the last week, because it is somewhat unpopular with many conservatives. I'm actually in mild support of it, although in some ways I don't think it goes far enough. It's an interesting one. This idea Mike Lee has: so much of the land, in the West is actually owned by the federal government. In Nevada, in Utah, Nevada, it's like 80 or 90% of the whole state. Utah's like 60% of the whole state. And we don't want to sell up the national parks. Are going to remain the national parks. It doesn't include the national parks. It doesn't include land that can't be used for housing. There's so many veto points in the selling off. It's got to be approved by the community. It's got to be approved by the Secretary of the Interior. It's got to be, if the Chinese tried to buy the land, Trump could veto it. There's all different ways in which it's the most mild proposal of all time to create some more housing. And now we're debating it on social media. It was in this bill, and it had gotten no attention because it was just in a gazillion-page bill. Yep. The policy should obviously be voted on by itself, and now maybe it's going to, because the Senate parliamentarian, which is kind of a weird thing anyway, that this person unelected gets to decide. Which Ryan Grimm used to, when he and I hosted Rising together years ago, he would complain to the end of time about
Senate parliamentarian.
He hated the Senate parliamentarian. It was thwarting at the time the what was the other BBB bill? The Build Back Better.
Build Back Better, the Biden infrastructure, the massive Biden bill together. Yes. Yeah, I mean the Mike Lee thing. This proves your point in a way. I have not been following that debate particularly closely, but also Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I believe we're going to have on later today in Rising. She, correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't she said that she would not have voted to support this bill had she known that the AI regulations or ban on state-level regulations were in it?
She might have. I have no idea what her view is on that.
But she certainly, I think, took the view that something that she was unhappy with relating to AI was in it at the time that she voted for it, and she didn't notice because it goes on forever. So
right. People who want to ram through unpopular pieces of legislation want it to be an everything bagel bill, so they don't look too closely at the details. Oh, it's going to do something you don't like. Oh, well, but it's part of the spending package that keeps the government operating, so we gotta pass it. Don't look too closely at those details. It just seems so obviously bad. I mean, no one is really defending this way of doing things. It's just the default given the political constraints we have.
Well, and also, I mean, it's tricky, right? Because sometimes in government, you have to do things that you know aren't going to be particularly popular.
Sure.
And naturally enough, elected officials of either party are going to want some sweetener or some way to defend that. So what is, normal or potentially useful kind of horse trading, and what is very devious, let's just slip this in the bill and not say anything about it.
It was a really interesting interview, the rest of the interview Massie did with Theo Vaughn, by the way. Massie is a fascinating individual. His house, his property was like all built by him and is totally environmentally and energy-wise self-sufficient. Okay. And he talks a lot about that. It's interesting stuff. The guy lives off the grid. It's very interesting. Next up, President Trump got NATO countries to agree to up their spending, but there was one outlier. We'll discuss. President Trump finally got something he's been wanting since his first term in office, for NATO countries to agree to increase their military spending. Countries approved a plan to increase their defense spending from 2% to 5% of GDP. Spain notably did not agree, which prompted criticism from Trump.
Trump also committed to upholding Article 5 of the NATO treaty. Article 5 says that an attack on one NATO country is an attack on all, and as a result of that, every country must contribute to the collective defence. That's close to a 180 for Trump, who in the past has been very critical of the alliance, mused about leaving it, and has even called NATO countries freeloaders.
Here's Trump speaking with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte yesterday.
It's a great victory for everybody, I think, and we will be equalized very shortly, and that's the way it has to be. It's going to be a lot of money, too, a lot of defense.
Trillions extra.
Yeah, and we have a great relationship.
Others weren't as happy with the summit, however. According to the New York Times, the former Europe director for the National Security Council under President Biden, Tori Taussig, said all the big challenges were left off the agenda. There was no meaningful deliverable for Ukraine, despite a fourth year of a land war in Europe.
Democratic Senator Chris Coons praised the summit and the NATO chief, writing in part on X, a strong transatlantic alliance is good for the U.S. and also the world, and we are bolstering our collective defense and confronting shared challenges from Russia to China. NATO's chief also went viral yesterday for appearing to refer to Trump as daddy. When discussing Trump's F-word tirade against Iran and Israel, Rutte told Trump, sometimes daddy needs to use strong language. Rutte insists he didn't call Trump daddy, but was trying to illustrate that he sometimes hears people in Europe asking him if the U.S. is staying in NATO. Rutte says that sounds like children asking dad if he was staying in the family, hence why he said it.
I don't know what I think about Daddygate. That seems a whole peculiar scenario.
I saw a lot of conversation about this on social media yesterday, so I wanted to mention it.
That's fine. I just think that it seems a lot of people have psychological issues in that respect.
Trump is the father figure of the nation, and the nation is the father figure for the world.
Robbie, contain yourself, please.
I cannot.
It's terrible.
But this seems like a very good outcome from my point of view to get other countries in NATO to contribute more to their defense. That has been a sticking point for Trump, and I think that's a sentiment among the American voters more generally on both sides of the aisle, frankly, that we cannot be the world policeman. We can't be solely responsible for the defense of the world, that Europe needs to contribute more to its defense if we're going to remain part of this alliance, and that strengthens the case for remaining in it. So people who want the U.S. to still be part of NATO, obviously there's a segment of the right and the left that thinks NATO has outlived its usefulness and is just antagonizing Russia at this point. Here's one way to keep the alliance going, have them contribute more. That seems like a win-win. It seems fine to me.
So in relation to the Jews themselves, I don't really disagree with that. There was the Jews that would that each nation was supposed to pay was something that the European nations had basically underpaid into. And so if Trump, in his sometimes somewhat belligerent way, actually encourages people to pay that money that they are due, then I don't...
It's a negotiating tactic. That's what Trump does. He's negotiating.
That would take us into a whole other discussion, Robbie, which we'll get into about various other topics during this show. The point that I would say about European nations upping their defence spending.